And I think it's important that, teams like the security teams or the IT teams are really leaning in and using the tools as much as they can. If you want to avoid a sprawl, that you build a platform or a playground where people can play. I think if you build it, they will come.
Brad, it's such a pleasure to be back with you at another Predictions. Thank you again for making the time.
Oh, thank you. I can't believe it's been a year.
Looking forward to diving in. And Brad, I'd actually like to start with a very similar question to how we kicked off last year's cyber section. In the current threat environment, what should teams be most concerned about?
Well, certainly AI is part of kind of every conversation everyone's having every day. So that's really kind of front of mind for everyone. There's new challenges with shadow IT, similar to where you had shadow IT in general. Now you have shadow AI, where people are easily able to deploy AI solutions in an enterprise, maybe not under the right enterprise controls. So that's something that's new that's kind of emerged. If we look at the threat landscape of threat actors, certainly it's gone beyond what we've seen before with them using like social engineering, using LLMs to create more convincing attacks or social engineering attacks. And I think every enterprise is probably challenged with the fact that AI is in probably every platform or service they're using. And that's creating quite a bit of a burden on, enterprise IT teams.
Great overview and intro. Thank you, Brad. Now, throughout this Predictions event, we're very much exploring all things agentic AI. Now that's very much where I want to focus. And I want to ask you two things. First, how and how soon will agents help security teams? And as a follow-up, does the implementation of agentic AI across the enterprise create new risks for the organization and new headaches for people like you?
I'd say some of it's kind of real now. I don't think I could say that I have a agentic SOC agent I'd call Ryan yet, right? But we're certain to see, certain very specific tasks that we're able to leverage AI for, and some agentic workflows. And I think that's probably the reality most organizations are coming to see. They need to build small purpose-built solutions that then they can start stringing together, where they have a greater confidence in them doing the right job the right way. We use it for things like data enhancement or process enhancement. So for instance, if we're getting a case coming in with a whole bunch of log files in JSON format, we get a quick summary of that, of the TLDR, what's important, what's interesting in this. Similarly, if we're taking from a triage case, promoting it up or escalating up to our IR team, they're getting a quick summary of all the work that's being done there. So there's points where it's really adding value, but I don't think we can truly say that we have a agent that is a part of the team yet. But it's certainly on the horizon. There are some interesting companies are doing things in this space. I think it's early on, but I think we're definitely on that path. As far as challenges for enterprises, it is the interconnectivity of all these systems. So be it a Slack, a Jira, a Workday, ServiceNow, the agentic workloads are allowing these things to connect in various ways. And that puts a lot of burden again on the IT teams or the security teams to understand how those things are connecting, getting visibility, creating appropriate guardrails and guidelines for each of those platforms. And each platform is going to be different, have its own nuances.
Thank you for that, Brad, and love the context that you were able to give for the audience. So thank you for that. And given all that, both the landscape generally and the agentic aspects, what should security leaders be doing right now to get a better handle on that overall risk?
I think understanding what's already in place or what's coming down the pipeline, getting alignment with teams of what they want to be doing, which platforms may already have some of this in place, where you have maybe already some of that shadow AI already in your environment. It's very easy for someone to watch a 30-minute YouTube video and start clicking away and bring something into your enterprise that doesn't have the right level of controls, not deployed in an enterprise sort of way. Certainly, the more that enterprises can be doing to pull that into a smaller set of platforms, the greater ability they have to provide that appropriate governance, the guardrails, the guidelines. It's very important to go back to nailing the basics. Things like identity, data governance, your data protection is increasingly important with these agentic workloads. If you don't do that right, these will clearly expose that in a key way. So I think, there's a big focus on understanding what's already in your environment and getting alignment with business leaders of what they want to do, so you can prioritize creating those guardrails, guidelines, governance models for those different platforms.
I love that it's always coming back to the basics, Brad. And we've talked about agents within the enterprise, but what about in the hands of attackers? How is generative and agentic agents up-leveling these attacks, and how should organizations grapple with these challenges on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So, I mean, and any sort of technology can be used in multiple ways, right?
Right.
For good or for bad. We are certainly seeing the advent of threat actors using some of these, foundational platforms to almost do the full life cycle of attack, looking for vulnerabilities, executing the exploit, even helping them out with the extortion plan, giving them probabilities of this organization based on their size, what's the likelihood they'll pay out for a certain ransomware amount. That's really different than before. So certainly as kind of the white hat people, we need to be looking at how we can leverage those same tools to gain efficiencies, to look for our own vulnerabilities, find them first, and really leaning in to find where we can, multiply our workforce, which is never enough, to help combat the people that are using that. We have the challenge that we're operating under, more stringent guidelines and other things where they're not beholden to that. They don't have to go through change management or things like that. So a little extra burden on us, but it's definitely evolving. There are very specific frameworks that teams have built to help on both sides of that, and I think teams really need to lean into that as much as possible.
It's evolving and it's moving fast. And Brad, last year we discussed the importance of preventing bad or corrupt code at the enterprise level from a build standpoint. With the increased adoption and implementation of agents, how has this impacted how engineering teams deploy the latest advancements?
Well, I think there's no questioning whether AI in coding is a fad. It's here to stay. You can argue certainly there's a lot more volume of code coming out. People are finding efficiencies. There's times where we're seeing that there may be more junk in the code, so something that could be written in 5 lines, it's spitting out 100 lines. I think it still requires teams to have a good level of discipline of how they're using these tools in normal enterprise ways with the same guardrails and guidelines. Think of things like context engineering, such you're doing things the same way. You have rigorous testing in there. I think there's a greater ability, though, to plug in these same tools earlier on in the pipeline. So things like plugging with the ubiquitous MCP protocol, plugging that in to allow the LLMs to get into the IDEs to check for vulnerabilities in the code as they're writing them. So I think it's certainly going to help companies move faster, develop more code, find better use cases quicker. But I think there's a good opportunity to plug in some of those security tools earlier in and really do a shift left and catching things earlier in the pipeline.
I like that, Brad. And back to your earlier point, always going back to the basics and the fundamentals, making sure you have that well-rounded foundation, and great perspective, and clearly indicates the importance of having that all-in approach. Brad, from your perspective, what industry standards are serving as the new baselines for IT?
Yeah, this is a challenging space. The rapid pace of innovation in AI is challenging. We're just hitting kind of the 1-year anniversary of MCP being released by Anthropic, and it is everywhere. I don't think the standard organizations are really set up to be able to really keep up. Even when we wrote our own AI policy back at the beginning of last year, MCP wasn't even considered in there. We've got a lot of thought leadership from OWASP that's been putting up a lot of good thought leadership of how you should be thinking and categorizing different areas of AI, thinking about how you should structure policies, and even saying that at some point policies are going to be more like a dashboard than a hard-written document, which is really interesting. So teams need to evolve, understanding that policies are going to be more like living documents, that things are written once every 2 years. It's going to be very dynamic.
Very much keeping up with the current landscape. Thank you for that, Brad. And for the audience watching who are eager to implement the latest defenses to safeguard their organizations, what steps should be taken now to supercharge the outcomes for the entire workforce?
So I said before, the more that you can get on a smaller set of platforms, the more you're going to be able to create those right governance models. The bigger sprawl you have, the bigger challenge. So I think that's one thing organizations should be looking at, picking a platform or platform or two where they can build that in. I'll say again, you got to nail the basics. If your underlying data identity is not shored up, it will quickly be exposed. And I think it's important that teams like the security teams or the IT teams are really leaning in and using the tools as much as they can. I think it's important that, if you want to avoid a sprawl, that you build a platform or a playground where people can play. I think if you build it, they will come.
Totally.
So I think that's really important to try and say, look, we have the tools, we have good guardrails, we have good guidelines, we have quick start guides. Come play with us and we'll show you how to do it the right way.
All with that top-down approach. Now, Brad, before we wrap, what's your hot take with regards to cybersecurity in the year ahead?
I think it's going to be a wild ride. Our team talks a lot about, what's coming down the pipeline or the challenges we're seeing already that AI is introducing to every aspect of what we're doing. I think it's in equal parts every day exciting and scary. We say that a lot. It's hard to put a plan that's going to be, say, 2 years out with AI, right? Because it's changing so dynamically. So I think you have to really be engaged using the technology. There's a challenge that security teams may be worried too much about the protection and not leaning in and using the technology themselves. I think by using the technology, you'll get better understanding of where these problems are, and you can help provide the blueprints of the way to do it in the right manner. I think if you look at, there's a burdening industry of AI security vendors. I think we're going to see a pretty significant consolidation. We're in an explosive phase. No one vendor is handling all of the aspects. That can't sustain. So I think we'll certainly see a consolidation over the next year. And I don't think this is controversial. The foundational models are going to get better and better at what they do. It blows me away. Gemini 3 just came out. The leaps and bounds that it's making. We're going to expect it to do more and more things. There are certain vertical industries, maybe in marketing or other things, that I think are going to be taken over, that generative AI can take over a lot of those tasks. Security teams naturally are thinking what can go wrong or how it can be misused. So it's a double-edged sword, right? There's all these great things that can be done. We need to be worried about what can go wrong there. But I think it's going to be an exciting and wild ride.
I love that wild ride for 2026, Brad. It's always a pleasure sitting down with you. Thank you so much. We covered a lot. Stick to the basics, create a playground, and always have that top-down data approach.
Thank you. It's been fun.